but it is her journey of self-love and acceptance that fuels her genius. Let's put our hands together for our next storyteller, Yanique Elliston.
Daddy love you. Yeah.
I was a little girl, 6 years old, watching this home video that my father recorded. The footage was from a couple of years prior, and he had sent this VHS tape back home in a barrel. When you live in the Caribbean and you have family abroad, it's a flex for them to send you a barrel filled with clothes, shoes, toys, all kinds of things from foreign. I don't remember everything that was in this particular barrel, but I distinctly remember this home video. For most of the video, he spoke in our native patois, until my mother walked by in the background, and he addressed the camera directly to say, yo man, that's my baby mama, man. I didn't really know what he meant by that, but it hurt my feelings. He switched everything, his accent, his body language. He even used his American twang. Who was he talking to? Who was that for? That left a nasty taste in my mouth, and I knew I never wanted to be called that. I don't know any women in my family who were married when they first had their children, even if they later on did marry their children's father. I knew what it was like to be the child in that scenario, and I never wanted that for my children. Over the years, I received so much signaling from family and society that have served as types of birth control. The way people would talk to and about young mothers with certainty that all their potential had just turned to dust. Saying things to these young women like, girl, do not have that baby. You're going to ruin your future. At age 9, I remember watching my auntie pop a tiny pill into her mouth while holding her newborn baby. I thought it was candy, and I was curious. It came in this round, white plastic dispenser. I never saw candy like that in the shops in Jamaica or in the American food section at the supermarket. So I asked her, Auntie, what's that? Her response was cut and dry. She looked me dead in my eyes and said, birth control. I clocked that information, stored it. I knew it would become important again in the future. Later that year, I started my period, which was no fun. I was 9 years old. I felt the energy around me shift, and I soaked in the fact that now I had to be even more responsible than I was already expected to be as a big sister. My mother was sure to give me a thorough talk about my changing body. She gave me every adolescent book under the sun. But I don't think she was comfortable talking to me about sex itself or what could come from it. After having been in the States for 2 years, I got that lesson from my sex ed teacher, who was very tired and very pregnant at the time. In many ways, a walking cautionary tale. I remember I begged my mom to let me take that class, and I'm so glad I did because the books she gave me were helpful, but I sensed there was some information missing, and I needed to know the rest of that story. My teacher talked more about other types of birth control, not just that tiny pill, but also a patch, a shot, some scary-looking implant things, and condoms. Then she talked about the 2 things that could come from having sex: STDs and babies. I remember that some of those STDs were curable. Others were undetectable. But those babies, on the other hand, total different story. But when I got to college, I got myself a little practice boyfriend to test out being grown with. And we had our fun, but I never got too comfortable. Never let my guard down. Always remembering those two things that could come from having sex. STDs and babies. And I didn't want either of those. So I learned to be resourceful in my amateur grownness. I attended an assembly held by Student Health Services. And there, I learned about the next level of birth control, an emergency plan, a plan B. And now I was armed with information. And this time I didn't need parental permission. I was able to make this decision on my own as a young woman. And I chose to protect my future always. Aside from not wanting to disappoint my parents, I didn't want to let myself down. I didn't want to make that call back home to say, I'm pregnant and I'm dropping out. Plus, I knew that if I ever did get pregnant, I would become a mother because I've always had this nurturing spirit and I've always wanted a family of my own for as long as I could remember. I didn't want to have to consider options like adoption or abortion because I respect those choices, but they just never felt right for me. Now, a grown woman, I have dodged the teen pregnancy bullet, but there's still this lingering fear that I will ever be called a baby mama. And this came up for me most recently in my last relationship. There I was, sitting across from the mother and grandmother of my boyfriend at the time, kikiing, having a good old time when out of nowhere, grandma goes, so, when y'all gonna have a baby? I was cautious in my response because I still wanted them to like me. But I was completely taken aback. But we're not married. She doubles down to say, well, wouldn't nobody be mad or nothing? I think she meant that as a compliment, as if to say she thought that I would be a good mother. But to me, it sounded like an attempt on my life. How come she didn't think to ask her grandson when he was going to propose? Did she even ask him if he was ready for a baby? Or better yet, ready to support a family? I mean, I get that she wanted a grandchild, but why would she try to set me up like that? And if she thought so highly of me, why would she want that kind of life for me as a grown-ass woman? How could she guarantee me that my baby and I wouldn't end up chasing him down the street, begging him to love us? I guess she was cool with me being his baby mama, as long as the baby was cute. I have had a lot of time to think about why I never liked how that sounded. It has a chaotic ring to it, crashing into my eardrums violently. It sounds like arguments and broken families, like a crafty way to devalue that woman and reduce her down to just a vessel that carried your child. It sounds like a loveless interaction that resulted in procreation, like a biological outcome of mere sexual intercourse. Yo, man, that's my baby mama, man. In 2 words, saying exactly how that man feels about that woman and that child, like he's stuck with them, not like he chose them. So do me a favor. Don't ever call me that, because that ain't no compliment to me. I will be your wife. I will even be your widow, but you will never call me your baby mama.
Legacy, 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 legacy. Black excellence. You gon' let them see.